Just, and you get blasé because you live amongst it all the time, and you have to stop and think, we're very lucky to live here. There's quite a lot of seals all around the coast of the island. They like the comfort. They're quite lazy. They get beached on a nice warm day and they just stay there, and you can see them resisting as the tide comes in. They're sort of holding their heads up and their tails up, trying to stay on as long as possible. We've got around 96,000 guillemots and 21,000 razorbills, so it's a big colony. It's a noisy place, it is indeed. Seabirds have been important to the people that live on Rathlin, all through the generations. My grandfather's time, they would have, taken the eggs and the birds for food, and now it's still important because a lot of people come to see the birds, so that generates an income. The birds are as important as they were 150 years ago for the whole economy of the island. There's 5 species: guillemots, razorbills, puffins, kittywits, fulmars. We have a series of census plots throughout the colony, and these census plots are counted every year the exact same place. So you can look at the records going back over years, and if you see a sharp decline in numbers, you might warrant further investigation from there on. We've been censusing the birds here now for over 20 years, and I've been doing it for the past 14. And it's very important work because these birds can be indicators of the health of the sea and the environment that they live in. It's very worthwhile keeping an eye on what's happening here. It's nice working here on the island. A lot of the time you get to spend outdoors and in the environment, and seeing nature at work. And then you've got the miserable days when you have to go out and it's not very pleasant. If you're sitting on a cliff top in the early morning and counting seabirds and your hands are freezing, you think, why am I doing this? But it's all very worthwhile at the end of the day. Can't see me doing much else now.
It's the atmosphere of the little island, absolutely special. And I promise you, people come from all over the world to visit British seabird islands. They're really, really something to be proud of, put it that way. And also, the point that Liam made there, really important, is that birds often are the best indicators of whether things are going okay, especially the things we can't see. We don't know what's going on under the water in the sea, but if the birds, for example, are starving, they can't find enough fish, their eggshells are thinning, some kind of poison going on, that's the first sign we get that there's something wrong down there under the water, and we can find out what it is, hopefully, and doing something about it is a tricky one, but we've really got to. Okie dokie, we're going to go straight to
wagtails.
Wagtails,
Let's
yes.
go and see them. Oh, there doesn't seem to be anything there.
They're not there at the moment. They're down there at the moment, probably feeding. I promise you there's our 5 youngsters there. And
there they go.
Bang on to, well, there's one of them anyway. Hunger. And I think we've got a little moment from earlier on when we actually saw them feeding. This is fascinating because the other week, if you were watching, I said there were lots of moths get attracted to the security lights in the village, as it were, and or in our village, our temporary village. And I was delighted. I was counting all these moths and finding them, and there were new species. But the wagtail was either watching the programme or had sussed the same thing, because this is early morning in the village when everyone's asleep except the cameraman. And look, he's found a moth right by the light. I think that's a pale prominent, you moth people at home.
Less prominent now.
It's less prominent, and it's also totally wingless. Yes, quite so. That was extraordinary, and the only sad thing is there's been a lot fewer moths, because I want to do a moth item before we finish, so don't eat them all, wagtails, if you're watching.
We need
don't
them.
Flipping eat them all, right. Okay, we're going to have a quick look at the swallows, and it's getting sleepy time. It really is. It is quite sort of crepuscular, is the posh word. I love that word. It means it's getting sort of
Evening light.
Evening dusk,
Yes.
and that sort of thing. there's a little bit of noise coming from them now, isn't there?
Yes,
They've been
there
very
is,
quiet
and
up to now.
definitely, there's a lot more wing flapping now. They're a lot
There
more
is,
active.
and yet they theoretically have got, another 10 days or so in the nest. I'm worried that one of them's going to fall out, actually. There's a swallow hunting,
earlier.
as she does. Down, and straight in. Watch that. And down the barn, inside, up, he or she, I didn't see the tail there. And she feeds.
Is it the male?
No, that's a female. You'd see the long tail skin. And out she comes through the little narrow thing. You can see they're already getting their little red bibs and their little red on top of their head. I just love baby swallows, They're fantastic. And with a bit of luck, with a bit of bad luck, they might get so crowded that one of them falls out. That can happen, unfortunately. Yeah. And frankly, it won't stand much chance if it does. But they often, long before they actually fledge, get out of the nest and kind of line up along the beam, And then it's fantastic because the adults come in and sort of go along the line.
Go along the line.
You've got 2 days, Swallow.
I'm going to disappear in my comedy boots.
I am not going to ask why she is now dressed up in thigh-high boots as if she's going to do a panto or something. I look forward to a bit of thigh slapping in a minute. I bet Simon would like that. Who's slapping your thighs down there in London?
Sounds splendid. Welcome back to the London Wetlands Centre. I've moved up to the main observatory, cracking views out over one of the big lakes here, London in the background. Glorious evening, and there's so much going on. Look at this starling roost over my head. It's just everything going on. It's really, really beautiful. It's hard to know which way to look. It really is. In fact, earlier, just a few moments ago, the adult fox was trotting around on the islands behind us here, and it came across a bit of competition in the way of a swan. Now, you may think that the swan's in trouble. Far from it. Swans are big birds, aggressive, and they do not tolerate predators like foxes in their space. Fox looking a wee bit cool, but there are some of these small islands linked by very shallow water, and the fox is able to wade across. He's obviously on a mission, and that's what he wants to do, swan or no swan. But he's going to get a little bit of a shock. No, you don't, my friend. And I can assure you, if you're hit by a swan's wing, you really feel it. I was once whacked on top of the head when I was helping with ringing swans, and it knocked me clean out. So they're very, very powerful birds. Not dangerous if you leave them alone, but that fox rather had every reason to scarp her, no question about it. It's not just foxes, swans, and other water birds. There's a real speciality that we've been watching here at the Wetlands Centre. This is it, little ring plover. May look like a little brown job, but it's a very special bird indeed. They're relatively recent arrivals in the British Isles, only been nesting here for about 60 years. They've come across from the continent perfectly naturally and established on areas like this and gravel pits. Now, this pair has hatched 4 young, and that happened 4 days ago. Just look at that. Is there anything cuter? Now, quite unlike most of the chicks that we've been watching through the course of the week, plover chicks are up and about within hours of hatching. They're starting to peck and find their own food within 2 hours. But it's a tall order to ask it to wade across when it doesn't know how deep the water is. It may be a wading bird, but that's pretty special. Still very tiny, as I say, 4 days old, and being carefully nurtured, at least by the parent birds. Even though it's been very warm, they quite often go back to the parents for a little bit of consolation and also for incubation. They can't resist tucking in under there. But it's a wee bit of a squeeze. The 10-legged plover, almost unique to the London Wetland Centre. It's not just the birds, as I've mentioned. We've seen the foxes, of course, but London Wetland Centre has been instrumental in a new project to encourage one of Britain's most charming and rarest of mammals. That's the water vole. Water voles have taken an absolute hammering. Now, I can remember seeing water voles on almost every waterway I visited as a kid. They used to be on the river close to me, no longer. Now, 2 things have pushed them to the brink of extinction in Britain. One of those is habitat destruction, riverbanks being changed. But another is the mink. Now, the mink gets a lot of bad press, often unjustified, but in the case of water voles, absolutely true, because mink are just as at home in the water as they are in land, and the water vole has absolutely no escape, no resource to try and avoid them. Mink are not natural in Britain, escaped from fur farms and the like in the past, and Here in the London Wetland Centre, 250 voles were released in 2001, and they've established a very healthy population, at least 300 of them here now. They absolutely adore apple. The research project leaves the odd bit of apple out for them from time to time, just to make sure where they are and how they are. It's a good way of monitoring them. Cracking little creatures, easily mistaken for a rat. This is not a rat. This is the ratty of Wind in the Willows, but it's a vole, very different looking creature, has short ears, barely visible, and little prominent eyes. They're super animals. There's a tremendous amount, as I say. Starling's still moving behind me. Look at this. Doesn't get any better. Oh, it's a dream spot. Now, there is a lot going on top of the water, but there's a tremendous amount going on underneath the surface as well. And here's Bill with an amphibian melodrama.
Getting across town can be quite a trial, especially if you're a frog. Every February, frogs appear from far and wide and gather for a great event. Fortunately for this frog, just across the road there's a city park, a green oasis, a perfect venue for the annual Frog Fest. Especially because the park has a lovely big pond. But why are they all gathering? Well, here's a clue. Yes, it's February the 14th, St. Valentine's Day. As we all know, love makes the world go round. In truth, though, the frogs' gathering isn't so much romantic as frantic. In fact, an orgy, with males competing with other males to mate with as many females as they can. And the result is loads of new frog spawn, each globule containing a perfect little frog in waiting. Then, something strange happens. Having gone to such efforts to bring their young into the world, the adults abandon them. How are they going to manage? All on their own. And just to make things worse, in early March, winter comes back with a vengeance. So, what's going to happen to our little frogs? Frozen in solid ice. How can they possibly survive this? Although some eggs near the surface have died in the cold, others lower down have survived. It takes just a couple of weeks for a little black blob to turn into a fully functional, free-swimming tadpole. At this stage, the tadpoles feed on algae, and they hatch just as the algae starts to grow. So, all's well in frog world. Or, is it? Newts have also been heading for the pond to feast on tadpoles. At this time of the year, tadpoles form a major part of a newt's diet. But they don't just have newts to worry about. There's a perfectly designed killing machine lurking at the bottom of the pond. A dragon fly larva.